Lately, there's been discourse surrounding video games, whether or not they're getting worse. I plan to compare video games year by year to see if they took a step forward or backwards. Video games started to get popular in the 70s and 80s, with games such as Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Tetris. There was a sharp increase in the quality of games from the 70s to the 80s. With improving technology and growing fan interest, the gaming industry was allowed to grow. Home consoles also became popular around this time, with the likes of the Commodore 64, the NES, and the Sega Genesis. The first handhelds were also released around this time, with the Nintendo Game & Watch and the Game Boy also being released in the 80s. Couple that with popular mainstream franchises first being created in the 80s, many of which are still around today, gaming seemed like it was here to stay. 1990, the start of a new decade, and with it came a plethora of new games and game consoles. With systems like the Sega Master System 2, the Neo Geo, and the Commodore 64 game system, not to be confused with the Commodore 64, the 90s seemed to be off to a hot start, at least system-wise. Some popular games released in 1990 include Dr. Mario, Super Mario World, Dragon Quest IV, Mega Man 3, F-Zero, Final Fantasy III, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake. 1990 was definitely an improvement over years previous. With its top game being Super Mario World, the decade was off to a solid start and was an overall good step forward for gaming. With the 90s off to a strong start, 1991 was up. It was time to show off what they were made of. 1991 only saw the release of two game systems, the Philips CDI and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, one of the most popular game systems ever created. And it didn't slouch when it came to games either. With games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Street Fighter II, Final Fantasy IV, Battletoads, Mega Man 4, Streets of Rage, and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, just to name a few, it seemed like gaming was following a trend. That trend being games increasing in quality. But did 1991 beat out 1990 when it came to gaming, or did it fail to meet standards set early on? When comparing 1990 versus 1991, the years feel more or less the same, with 91 building off of years previous. The ever-loved SNES also beat out the consoles that were released in 1990. Though I do believe 1990 had the better top game, with Super Mario World beating out Sonic the Hedgehog, 1991 had better depth with its games. In my opinion, 1991 beats out 1990 overall, with better depth with its games and better consoles. Though 1990 is a solid start to the decade. It's filled with great games. So far, gaming has only gotten better, from the 70s to the 80s and now into the 90s. Though, what year will be the first decline, and what is the worst year of gaming in the 90s?